The chime of the bells rang out like a warning as Elira stepped into the bakery. The warm glow of enchanted lanterns should have been comforting, but today it felt fragile, as though the light could shatter under the weight of her thoughts. The aroma of freshly baked bread and sugar-dusted pastries usually soothed her nerves, but now it only reminded her of how fleeting peace could be. Behind the counter, Arlen was kneading dough, his forearms flexing with each press. His auburn hair was a tousled mess, and flour clung to his clothes. When he looked up and saw her, his brow furrowed. "Elira," he greeted, brushing flour off his hands as he straightened. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she lied, her voice tight. She reached into her coin pouch and set it on the counter. "I'll take an extra honey roll today." Arlen's hands stilled, and his hazel eyes bore into her. "An extra roll? You only do that when you're—" His expression darkened. "What's going on? I need to go to the Whispering Woods," she admitted, keeping her gaze fixed on the polished counter. The room grew deathly still. Even the crackle of the oven fire seemed to fade. "Elira, tell me you're joking." "I'm not. I need herbs that only grow there. Without them—" She stopped herself, shaking her head. "It doesn't matter. I just have to go." Arlen leaned forward, his voice sharp. "It does matter. You've heard the stories. People go in and they don't come out. What's so important that it's worth risking your life?" Her fingers curled into fists, her voice trembling as she snapped. "I don't have a choice, Arlen." She took a shaky breath, forcing her tone to soften. "Please don't ask me why. Just trust me." He stared at her for a long moment before cursing under his breath. Reaching under the counter, he pulled out a small cloth-wrapped charm. "Take this," he said, thrusting it into her hand. "It's a ward. It'll give you a chance to run if something finds you." Elira felt the carved wood in her palm, the faint hum of magic radiating from it. "Thank you," she whispered. Arlen's jaw clenched. "Don't thank me. Just make it back alive." The Whispering Woods stretched before her like a labyrinth of nightmares. The trees rose like skeletal giants, their branches gnarled and clawing at the sky. The air was damp and heavy, clinging to her skin like a shroud. Every step she took seemed to echo, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence. She tightened her grip on the charm in her pocket, its faint warmth her only comfort. She knew the stories, the whispers of shadows that moved like predators, the laughter that came from nowhere, the eyes that glowed in the dark. But the flowers were there, waiting. A pale, otherworldly light glowed in the clearing ahead, illuminating the moss-covered ground. At its center stood a cluster of ethereal blue blossoms, their petals swaying as if touched by an invisible breeze. She knelt, her hands shaking as she snipped the flowers one by one, placing them carefully into her satchel. Her ears strained for any sound, her muscles coiled to flee at the first sign of danger. Then she heard it, a low, guttural growl. Her blood turned to ice as she slowly straightened, her gaze darting to the shadows. The growl came again, closer this time, vibrating through her chest. "Who's there?" she called, her voice breaking. The answer was a pair of glowing yellow eyes. A massive, wolf-like beast emerged from the darkness, its black fur rippling like smoke. Mist coiled around its body and its claws dug into the ground with a sickening scrape. It bared its teeth, lips peeling back to reveal jagged fangs. Her breath hitched. She clutched the charm, its warmth flaring as it began to glow faintly. "Stay back," she whispered, her voice trembling. The beast crouched, muscles tensing. It lunged. She dove to the side, the charm blazing in her hand. The light struck the beast, forcing it to recoil with a snarl. She scrambled to her feet, her arm throbbing where its claws had grazed her. The charm's light flickered and dimmed, cracks spidering across its surface. "No, no, no!" she breathed, clutching it desperately. The beast growled low, stalking closer. The mist thickened, curling around her ankles. The charm shattered, the light extinguishing. The beast roared and leapt, and a blade of silver light cleaved through the air, slamming into the creature's side. The beast howled, its form flickering like a shadow caught in the wind. He stood between her and the monster, a shimmering blade in his hand, his face hard with determination. "Thought you could do this alone?" he growled, his voice low and furious. "What? How?" "Later," he snapped. The beast charged again, and he met it head-on. The fight was brutal. The blade flashed like lightning as he struck, each blow carving through the beast's smoky form. It lunged at him, its claws scraping his side, but he didn't falter. With a final, powerful swing, the blade pierced the creature's chest. The beast let out a deafening roar, its body dissolving into mist. The forest fell silent once more. He dropped the blade, turning to her. His face was pale, his breathing ragged. "You owe me an explanation," he said, his voice tight. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my life. You nearly lost it. Next time, tell me before you run off to die." Back at the bakery, the flowers sat in a vase, their soft glow filling the room. Elira sat at the counter, her bandaged arm resting on the table, a steaming cup of tea in her hands. "Thank you," she said quietly. Arlen leaned against the counter, his gaze on the flowers. "You're not going back there, ever." She didn't argue. Outside, the old man watched through the window, his smile sharp as smoke curled around him. As he turned to leave, his form shimmered and vanished, leaving behind only the faint scent of burning wood.